Never go to the farm, Catherine. Promise me. Those words, spoken with an unusual intensity, were among the few demands my husband Joshua made in our 24 years of marriage. I always respected his wishes, even when curiosity nipped at me in those rare moments when he mentioned his childhood in Canada on a property he'd left behind. But now, Joshua was gone, taken by a heart attack that no one, not even I, saw coming. After 24 years of marriage, I became a widow at 52, with a resentful daughter and a hollow in my chest where certainty used to live. Mrs. Mitchell, Joshua's lawyer, Mr. Winters, pulled me from my thoughts. We were seated in his wood-paneled office 2 weeks after the funeral, when the close of a life boiled down to paperwork and signatures. There's one more item. If you're watching this, please hit like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. He slid a small box across the desk. Inside was an old bronze key, a keychain with a maple leaf, and a sealed envelope with my name written in Joshua's precise hand. "What is this?" I asked, turning the heavy key in my palm. "Your husband purchased a property in Alberta, Canada, 3 years ago. Per his instructions, I was to inform you of its existence only upon his passing," Winters said, adjusting his glasses. "The deed has already been transferred into your name. The taxes are paid for the next 5 years. A property in Canada?" I struggled to process the information. Joshua didn't own anything beyond our house. "It's called Maple Creek Farm. Apparently, it was his childhood home, though the deed indicates it changed hands several times before he bought it back. The farm, the place he'd forbidden me to visit. The place that hardened his gentle face whenever it was mentioned. Mrs. Mitchell, there's something else you should know." He lowered his voice. "The property has become quite valuable recently. There have already been inquiries about its availability." "Valuable?" "It's a farm." "Yes, but according to my information, about 18 months ago, significant oil deposits were discovered in the region. Your husband rejected multiple offers from energy companies." My head was spinning. Joshua never mentioned oil, money, or any purchase. We lived comfortably on his engineer's salary and my income as a high school literature teacher, but we weren't rich. How had he paid for the farm, and why keep it from me? I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. "My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, I've gone too soon. I'm sorry. There's so much I should have told you and didn't know how to face. The farm is yours now. I've spent the last 3 years turning it from the broken place of my childhood into something beautiful, something worthy of you. I know I made you promise not to go. I release you from that promise. In fact, I'm asking you to go, just once, before you decide what to do. In the desk in the main house, there's a laptop. The password is the date we met, followed by your maiden name. I love you, Kat, more than you'll ever know. Joshua." I pressed the letter to my chest, vision blurred by tears. Even from the grave, Joshua managed to surprise me. "I need to see that place," I said at last. "Of course," Winters nodded, "but I must warn you, Joshua's family in Canada has contested the will. His brothers allege he wasn't of sound mind when he repurchased the family property." "That's absurd. Joshua was the most rational person I've ever known." Even so, they filed objections. Given the property's new value, it could get complicated. I pocketed the key as a strange resolve settled in me. "I'm going to Canada, Mr. Winters. Today." 48 hours later, after hastily booked flights and a long drive through the Alberta countryside, I stood before imposing wooden gates bearing the wrought iron sign, Maple Creek Farm. Beyond stretched an estate far larger and more impressive than I'd imagined. Rolling hills, maples turning golden in autumn, and in the distance, a large farmhouse and several outbuildings, all freshly painted. This wasn't a run-down family farm. It was a manor. The key turned smoothly in the gate lock. As I drove up the serpentine gravel lane, my heart pounded with anticipation and dread. What secrets had Joshua kept here? What part of himself had he hidden from me all these years? The house was a spectacular 2-story with a wide porch and big windows. Nothing suggested the pain Joshua associated with his childhood home. This place had been loved, restored, reimagined. My hands shook as I fitted the key into the front door. The lock clicked, the door swung open, and I crossed the threshold into my husband's secret world. What I saw inside stole my breath. My knees went weak and I clutched. The frame. The foyer opened into a great room with high ceilings, exposed beams, and a stone fireplace. But it wasn't the architecture that left me reeling. It was the horses, not of flesh and blood, but everywhere. Exquisite paintings of horses galloping across endless fields, sculptures capturing their power and grace, photographs of magnificent breeds framed in black. My lifelong passion, the indulgence Joshua had always supported, though he never fully understood, surrounded me in a gallery dedicated to my great love. And there, on a desk by the window overlooking endless pasture, rested a silver laptop with a single red rose on its lid. Before I took another step, the crunch of tires on gravel announced another arrival. Through the window, I saw a black SUV pull in behind my rental. 3 men got out, unmistakably Mitchells. Tall, dark hair, strong jaws. Joshua's brothers had arrived, and judging by their scowls, they weren't here to welcome the widow. They approached, with the confidence of men who believed they belonged. I locked the door in a rush, heart thundering. From a side window, I watched them stop on the porch, murmur to each other, and, finally, the eldest, a grayer, harder-eyed version of Joshua, rap on the door with sharp knuckles. "Mrs. Mitchell, we know you're in there. We should talk." The voice held that Canadian lilt that softened Joshua's speech when he was tired or upset. I stayed silent, edging back. Joshua's warning about his family had always been vague but forceful. Now, facing their unexpected arrival, my instincts screamed caution. The knocks came again, more insistent. "Catherine, I'm Robert Mitchell, Joshua's older brother. These are Alan and David. We've come for the farm." Of course they had, not for Joshua. Not to meet the wife their brother loved for 24 years. They'd come for the suddenly valuable property. I looked at the laptop on the desk. The answers were likely there, not in the strangers on the porch. Ignoring the increasingly aggressive pounding, I sat at the desk, opened the laptop, and typed the password 05051998 plus my maiden name. The screen came to life, and a folder named For Catherine opened. Inside were hundreds of videos, each labeled with a date, starting 2 weeks ago, the day after the funeral, and extending a full year into the future. With trembling fingers, I clicked on the first. Joshua's face filled the screen. Not the thin, pale one of his final months, but healthy, vibrant, clearly filmed earlier. He smiled straight at the camera, with that half smile that always made my heart race. "Hi, Kat. If you're seeing this, I'm gone, and you've come to the farm despite my years of making you promise you wouldn't." He chuckled softly. "I should have known you wouldn't resist, especially after what Winters would have told you." A lump rose in my throat. Even now, he knew me so well. "I've made a video for each day of your first year without me. A year I'll walk with you through your grief. A year to explain what I should have told you in life. Starting with why I bought back the farm I swore never to return to." The knocking stopped. Through the window, I watched the men return to the car, pull out documents, and confer grimly. Joshua went on. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same condition I inherited from my father. The doctors gave me 2 to 5 years. I chose not to tell you or Jenna. I didn't want pity, or for our last years to be overshadowed by death. His gaze softened. I wanted to live fully with you to the end, not die slowly in front of your eyes. Shock and anger flashed through me. He had hidden his diagnosis, made medical decisions without me, denying me the chance to prepare, to consciously treasure our last moments. "I know you're angry," he said, as if reading my thoughts. "You've every right, but I hope you understand it was out of love, not deceit." Outside, the men made phone calls, pacing the gravel with the frustrated energy of the entitled. When I was diagnosed, I decided to use the time I had left to create something meaningful for you. You've always loved horses, always talked about having land someday to raise them. So I found the last place anyone would expect me to go, the farm I left at 18, swearing never to return. He leaned toward the camera. What my brothers don't know is that I legally purchased the farm from our father before he died. The old man was ruined after years of failure and drinking. He sold it to me for a fraction of its worth, desperate, and made me swear to keep it secret from my brothers, who still believed they'd inherit it. That explained the contesting. They thought they had rights to a property Joshua legitimately bought. The farm was in shambles when I bought it, Kat, just like in my childhood. But this time I had resources to transform it. Every business trip in the last 3 years, I was here overseeing the work, building something for you. Outside, the brothers returned to the door. The eldest, Robert, pressed a document to the glass for me to see. It looked like a court order. My brothers will come for it, Joshua continued, his features hardening. They never wanted it until, last year, oil was found in the region. Suddenly, the worthless property they mocked me for buying was valuable. They'll try to take it from you. One of them ended a call wearing a triumphant look. In the bottom drawer of this desk, there's a blue folder with all the legal documents you need. The farm is indisputably yours. I made sure of it. Joshua's face softened again. But, Kat, whether you keep it or sell it is your choice. I built this place for you, filled it with beauty for you, but I don't want it to be a burden. A car came up the drive, a Royal Canadian Mounted Police cruiser. The brothers watched its arrival with satisfaction. One last thing, Joshua said. In the stables you'll find 6 horses, breeds I know you've always loved. The staff I hired will keep caring for them, whether you're here or not. They're my final gift to you, along with the means to enjoy them. The video froze on his smile just as the knocking resumed, more authoritative. Mrs. Mitchell, RCMP, we need you to open the door, please. I drew a long breath, closed the laptop, pulled the blue folder from the drawer, and prepared to face whatever came. As I went to open up, my phone rang. Jenna, our daughter from home. Jenna, now isn't a good time. Mom, her voice tight, why didn't you tell me about Dad's farm? And the oil? His brothers called me with a fair deal if I help contest the will. What's going on? They'd already gone after my daughter. The realization lit something fierce and protective in me. They weren't just coming for me. They meant to manipulate my grieving child. I'll explain everything later, I promised, watching the officer speak with the brothers. But Jenna, don't sign anything. Don't accept anything. Those men are not our friends. Mom, if there's money involved. This isn't about money, I cut in, surprised by the conviction in my own voice. It's about what your father wanted. Please, trust me. After a beat, she sighed. Okay, but call me as soon as you can. I hung up and opened the door. A young RCMP officer waited, flanked by the 3 Mitchells, their expressions a mix of hauteur and hostility. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Officer Wilson. These gentlemen have an order to inspect the property as part of a probate dispute. I smiled calmly, summoning the strength Joshua admired in me. Of course, officer. But first, I think you should see this. I handed him the blue folder with Joshua's documentation. My husband anticipated exactly this situation. Robert stepped forward with a dismissive look. Family disputes are complicated, officer. My sister-in-law is, understandably, emotional and confused. Actually, I cut in, I am neither emotional nor confused. I'm a widow on a property that legally belongs to me, facing 3 strangers who share my late husband's DNA. I turned to the officer. And I'd appreciate it if you reviewed these documents before allowing anyone into my house. The officer took the folder and examined it with a neutral face. The Mitchells glanced at each other. For the first time, I saw their confidence waver. I thought of Joshua's video, of the secret he kept to spare me pain, of the magnificent gift he created in his final years. I wasn't going to lose the last tangible expression of my husband's love without a fight. The officer looked up. "This appears to be in order, Mrs. Mitchell. Clear transfer of deed, notarized statements, even certified bank records of the original purchase." He turned to the brothers. "Gentlemen, I see no grounds to force an inspection today. This is a civil matter." Robert flushed. "This is outrageous." "That woman has no right." "That woman," I said evenly, "is Joshua Mitchell's wife, and I have every right to be here." As they withdrew reluctantly with the constable, I felt a strange mix of loss and discovery. The husband I thought I knew completely had kept secrets, some painful, others of overwhelming beauty. Now, I had a choice: retreat to my known life, or step fully into this unexpected legacy and the battle it implied. I shut the door, returned to the desk, and opened the laptop again. Tomorrow's video awaited me, and, with it, more pieces of the man I loved and whom, only now, I was beginning to understand completely. Outside, the Mitchells might have lost this skirmish, but their looks as they left made one thing clear: the war for Maple Creek Farm had only just begun. I spent that night in the house, in our house surrounded by evidence of Joshua's secret labor of love. Sleep eluded me. My mind boiled. His hidden illness, the transformed farm, his brother's determination to claim it, and hundreds of videos waiting on the laptop. At dawn, I properly toured the property. The main house was a restoration masterpiece, original farmhouse spirit with modern comforts. Every room reflected my tastes: a library with first editions of my favorite novels, a glassed-in east-facing room perfect for morning coffee. But it was the stables that took my breath away. As the video promised, 6 magnificent horses occupied immaculate stalls: an Andalusian, a Frisian, 2 quarter horses, a thoroughbred, and a gentle Appaloosa who nickered softly when I approached. "Good morning, ma'am." The voice startled me. A man in his 60s emerged from the tack room, drying his hands. "I'm Ellis. Your husband hired me to run the 4 stables." "Catherine Mitchell," I replied, shaking his hand. "Though I suspect you already knew that." He nodded with a kind smile. "Mr. Mitchell spoke of you often. Said you had a natural hand with horses, something he never quite managed. Did you know my husband well?" He hesitated, as well as he allowed. "He was here every month these last 3 years, supervising in person. He wouldn't delegate a decision if he could make it himself." That sounded like Joshua, methodical, practical, detail-minded. "The black Frisian," he gestured to a magnificent stallion watching us with intelligent eyes. "That's Midnight. Your husband spent months finding him. Said he reminded him of a horse from a painting you loved." My heart clenched. The Stubbs painting, the black horse against a storm sky. I'd admired it in a museum 20 years ago, and Joshua remembered. "Did he?" I faltered. "Did he ever mention his health?" A shadow crossed Ellis's weathered face. "Not directly, but in the last 6 months he picked up the pace. Worked more, added improvements, like a man racing a clock only he could hear." It hurt, but explained that urgency I'd noticed in his final months. I'd chalked it up to work stress, never imagining he was creating all this, knowing time was short. "His brothers came by yesterday," I said, watching Ellis. His expression hardened. "They've been circling since oil was found on neighboring land. Suddenly, they're interested in a family farm they hadn't set foot on in decades. What can you tell me about them?" "Robert, the eldest, runs an investment firm in Toronto. Always treated Joshua like he was doing him a favor by acknowledging him. Alan, the middle one, a lawyer, silver tongue. David, the youngest, followed Robert into finance, always in his shadow. He slid a stall door shut. Tensa doesn't cover their relationship with Joshua. From what I gathered, they tormented him as a kid. City boys who came to the farm grudgingly looked down on him for staying to help their father. When he came back to buy the place, they mocked him for wasting money, until the Petersons found oil 2 farms over. It fit the scraps Joshua had dropped over the years, the rough childhood, the flight to the U.S., for school, the reluctance to talk about his Canadian family. "They'll be back," I murmured. "Count on it," he nodded. But Mr. Mitchell prepared. He was always 3 steps ahead. Back in the house, I forced myself to eat before opening the day's video. Joshua appeared, seated in what I now recognized as the library. "Good morning, Kat. I hope you slept well in our new home." He smiled with that half-smile I ached for. "Today I want to show you something special." The camera moved down a hallway I hadn't explored to a closed door. "This room is just for you. The key is in the top drawer of the nightstand, the old silver one with the horse engraving." I paused the video, went to the bedroom, and found the key exactly as he'd said. I reached the door, turned the lock, and lost my breath. A complete art studio. Perfect north light through floor-to-ceiling windows, easels, canvases, paints, brushes, everything arranged with care. I hadn't painted in 20 years. After college, I left painting to teach, to support us, while Joshua cemented his career and we raised Jenna. Over time, someday became a distant dream, and then a bittersweet memory of a path not taken. The video continued. Joshua's voice drew me back to the laptop I held in my hands. "You gave up so much for us, Kat. Painting was the first sacrifice. Though you never complained, I promised myself I'd return it to you someday." Tears blurred my sight. Professional-grade materials, inspiration books, steady northern light. "There's one more thing," he went on. "Check the cabinet, under the window bench." I went to the cushioned seat facing east, now golden with morning. Beneath, built in, was a cabinet I would have missed without his hint. Inside, a flat archive box. I lifted the lid and knelt, stunned. My paintings, dozens, work from college I thought lost in moves. Joshua had saved them for 2 decades to give back to me in this perfect space. On top, a canvas I recognized instantly. My final project, a self-portrait of a young woman looking ahead, eyes bright with possibility. Joshua asked to keep it the day I finished. Beside it, a note in his hand. "She's still there, Kat. The woman who painted with passion and vision. I've given you the space. The rest is up to you." I pressed the note to my chest, overwhelmed by love and loss in equal measure. Joshua had seen me, truly seen me. The sound of cars on gravel broke the trance. Through the studio window, I saw 2 vehicles arrive. The familiar black SUV of the Mitchells, and behind it, a silver Mercedes I recognized at once. Jenna had arrived, and from the way she stepped out and headed straight to the brothers, it seemed they'd already started working on her. My daughter, her father's dark hair, and my stubborn chin, smiled and shook hands with uncles she'd never met. The bit of peace I'd found in Joshua's posthumous gifts evaporated before this new complication. The battle for Maple Creek Farm had just become deeply personal. I watched from the window as Jenna greeted them, open, receptive. At 27, she had her father's analytical mind and my resolve, but she lacked his patience and my caution. Quick to form opinions, slow to revise them. A text buzzed. I arrived with Uncle Robert and the others. "Coming in now, we need to talk." Uncle Robert. Less than a day and she was already speaking of family. I tucked Joshua's note away, locked the studio, and headed down to face this new alliance. They came in without knocking, Jenna with a brosant, daughter's familiarity. The brothers behind her like wolves, led by a lamb without knowing. "Mom!" She hugged me quickly, her eyes taking in the spectacular foyer. "This place is incredible. Why did Dad never tell us about it?" Before I could answer, Robert stepped forward. His resemblance to Joshua ached in the morning light. The same jawline, different eyes. "Catherine, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday. Your showing up surprised us, as our presence surprised you." His conciliatory tone didn't match his calculating gaze. At his side, Alan and David seemed neutral, though I noticed Alan gripping a leather portfolio legal papers, surely. "Jenna," I said, ignoring Robert. "We agreed you wouldn't deal with your father's brothers until we talked." She flushed. "They called again this morning with a very reasonable proposal. I thought I should at least hear them out in person." She lifted her chin, defiant. "Besides, they're my family too." "Family you didn't know existed until yesterday," I reminded her gently. "Because Dad hid them from us," she shot back. Just like he hid this place. Don't you think that's weird? What else was he hiding? The question brushed too close to the videos. Joshua had hidden his illness, the purchase, my studio, but born of love, not deceit. Your father had complicated relationships with his brothers. I chose my words carefully. He had reasons for the distance. Robert made a dismissive gesture. Old history. Brothers clash, especially in difficult families like ours. What matters is moving forward together. Exactly, Jenna nodded with sincere naivete. Uncle Robert explained, this farm has been in the Mitchell family for generations. Dad bought it from Grandpa, but it was always meant to be shared among the brothers. I knew then that in less than a day she was repeating their script, and that sudden interest, I wouldn't have anything to do with the oil discovery, would it? I asked. Alan opened his portfolio. Mineral rights are only one aspect of a complex legal picture. We've brought a fair offer that honors Joshua's wishes and recognizes the Mitchells' historic claim, Robert added, paternal, placing a hand on Jenna's shoulder. A third for you, Catherine. A third for Jenna, and a third split among the three of us. Everyone wins. Jenna looked at me, clearly persuaded. It makes sense, Mom. We don't need a place this big. We could sell, walk away with millions, and Dad's family stays united. Your father left this property to me, I said, holding Robert's gaze. Not to you, and not to his brothers. Out of confusion and sentimentality, he countered. Joshua wasn't thinking clearly in his last years. A spark of anger flashed through me. My husband was of sound mind until the day he died. Then why all the secrecy? David cut in, voice soft but piercing. Why hide the purchase from his wife and daughter? Why the setup with the lawyer? Those aren't the actions of a rational man. I thought of the videos, the farm, the studio. All meticulously planned as a final gift. Nothing confused about it. Mom, Jenna, gentler now. I know this is hard. Dad's gone, and now there are secrets. But this proposal makes financial sense. We'd be set for life. The door opened behind us. Ellis appeared, concerned. Everything all right, Mrs. Mitchell? I saw the vehicles. The brothers turned, annoyed at the interruption. This is a family matter, Robert growled. Ellis is my employee, I said firmly. He's welcome in my home. In fact, Alan interjected, his employment status is one of the assets in dispute until the claim is resolved. Ellis didn't budge. Mr. Mitchell hired me personally. He made me promise I'd care for the place and for Mrs. Mitchell if anything happened to him. We'll be reviewing all hires, Robert snapped. That was enough. It's time for you to go. All of you. I looked at the brothers and softened when I looked at Jenna. You can stay, of course. You're not even going to consider the offer? Jenna was surprised. I'll review any proposal in writing with my lawyer, I replied. But I won't be pressured in my own home. Robert's conciliatory mask slipped, revealing the hard man beneath. This property is worth tens of millions with the oil rights. We can do this amicably, or we can make it very hard. Is that a threat? I asked, calmer than I felt. A reality check, he corrected. You're a Minnesota schoolteacher facing a legal battle against opponents with far more resources. Joshua meant well, but he left you in an unsustainable position. I thought of the blue folder, the videos, the transformed property. I think my husband, I knew exactly what he was doing, I said. Now, please leave. Jenna, if you want, stay for lunch. She hesitated, looking between me and her uncles. I think I'll go with them. We have more to discuss. She kissed my cheek. Think about the offer, Mom. Please. I watched them drive away with an ache in my chest. In 24 hours, my daughter had fallen into the orbit of men Joshua had avoided his whole life. What they were saying was working. I waited until the cars disappeared. Then Ellis spoke. Mrs. Mitchell, there's something you need to know. Mr. Mitchell asked me not to mention it unless absolutely necessary. What is it? The true extent of the property, and what's really hidden here. He nodded toward the stables. Let's walk. Some things aren't best said where the walls might have ears. Sunlight bathed the beautiful farm my husband had created in secret. Whatever the revelation was, I was certain of one thing. Joshua had anticipated this battle, perhaps even Jenna's vulnerability to her uncles. The question was whether he'd prepared me enough to win a fight I hadn't known was coming. Ellis led me past the main stable to an aging barn that still kept its rustic character, deliberately unrestored to look irrelevant. "Your husband was careful," he said, pulling out an iron key. "After your brothers-in-law's first visit last year, he got more cautious." "They came before?" Joshua never mentioned it. "They showed up unannounced when they heard about oil on the neighboring farms. Your husband was here overseeing the art studio. They didn't recognize him. He'd grown a beard during treatment," he added casually, and the pain lanced me again. He watched them from a distance and left without revealing himself. That night, he changed the property plans. He opened the door, starting with this. Inside, it looked like any barn. Hay bales, tools, dust dancing in shafts of light. Ellis went to a corner, moved bales, and revealed a trapdoor in the dirt floor. "Your husband installed this entrance last winter. The crews thought it was a root cellar." He lifted the hatch to a wooden staircase descending into darkness. "After you, Mrs. Mitchell." Curiosity beat caution, and I went down. At the bottom, he flipped a switch. A concrete tunnel stretched underground. "What is this?" "Your husband called it the safe. I call it genius." We walked on. The tunnel ran about 50 meters to a large room with filing cabinets, a desk with equipment, and walls covered in maps and documents. "Welcome to Joshua's war room," Ellis said, proud. Everything he gathered on his brothers, their businesses, and the real value of Maple Creek Farm. I stepped up to a map of the farm and surrounding miles. Red marks indicated locations of oil deposits with notes on depth, quality, and extraction challenges. "I don't understand." "Joshua didn't know about the oil at first. He bought this for you. But about 18 months ago, when the Peterson land showed oil, he secretly hired geologists." He pointed to the map. "They found something unexpected. The biggest deposit isn't to the east where everyone is drilling. It's here, under the western acres that look useless." I stared at the cluster of marks beneath that rugged, nearly inaccessible area land Robert hadn't even mentioned in his proposal. The oil company's surveys missed it. The formation's unusual, deeper, a different shape. Ellis opened a cabinet. He verified with 3 independent experts under strict confidentiality. "So, the property is even more valuable than they think. Exponentially. But there's more." He pulled a thick folder. Joshua documented decades of questionable practices by all 3. Tax evasion, insider trading, embezzlement, enough to ruin them professionally if it sees daylight. I flipped through pages stamped with Joshua's method. Emails, financial records, sworn statements, an airtight case. "Why collect all this?" "Leverage," he said. "He knew they'd come for the farm. He wanted to give you a counterweight." I thought of Robert's assuredness, Alan's slick tongue, the way they had won over Jenna. He anticipated everything. "Not everything." Ellis lowered his voice. "He didn't expect they'd get to your daughter so fast." It stung. Jenna had always been Daddy's girl, analytical mind, love of puzzles. His death left her adrift, vulnerable. "What do I do now?" "That depends on what you want. You could sell everything and walk away rich, maybe at the cost of your relationship with Jenna. You could fight this in court and win, but open old wounds. Or what? Or do what your husband did. Think 3 steps ahead and find the path no one expects." I looked at a photo on the desk. Joshua as a teenager beside a magnificent chestnut, happiness clear. "That was Phoenix," Ellis explained. "The horse from his youth. Said he was the only light in his childhood. His brother sold the animal when Joshua was in college, just to hurt him." Another piece clicked into place. His support of my love of horses, the 6 magnificent animals in the stable, not just a gift, but restitution. I picked up the photo, and a plan began to form. "Does the laptop with the videos work down here?" "Yes. There's secure Wi-Fi across the property. Your husband made sure. Good. I need to watch the next videos ahead, and I need you to arrange a meeting. With whom? First, with my daughter, alone, away from her uncles. Then, with my lawyer. And finally, I glanced at the wall of evidence, with the representatives of the oil companies that have made offers. Ellis smiled for the first time since we'd entered the bunker. You're planning something he'd approve of. I'm planning something worthy of the man who loved me enough to create all this, I said, my voice steady now. And I'm going to need your help. Whatever you need. Your husband saved my life years ago, gave me this job when no one trusted an ex-con. I owe him everything, and by extension, you. Another side of Joshua I hadn't known, his quiet generosity. As we left the bunker and camouflaged the entrance, I felt a new connection to my husband, not the grief that had dominated the last weeks, but an alliance that continued beyond death. He hadn't left me just a property and material security. He'd left me tools and knowledge to chart my course. The Mitchells thought they faced a naive widow. They had no idea what was coming. Over the next 48 hours, I barely slept, fueled by determination and the clarity of the plan. I watched a week of videos in one night. They'll try to divide and conquer, Joshua warned in 1, as if speaking to me in the present. Robert will be the friendly face, Alan the legal threat, David the quiet observer, and they'll target Jenna. She's their easiest route to destabilize you. In another video, he walked the western section, those useless acres they had excluded. This land looks like nothing, Cat. Scrub, rock, tough access. That's why it's perfect. No one looks closely at what seems worthless. Armed with Joshua's insights and my own, I summoned Jenna to a cafe in town, 20 minutes from the farm. Neutral ground. She arrived 15 minutes late, defensive before she sat. I can't stay long. Uncle Robert's taking me to the family lawyer. Uncle Robert, I echoed lightly. You've gotten very close in 3 days. She blushed. They've been kind and welcoming, more than you. You treat them like enemies instead of Dad's family. I sipped my coffee, choosing my words. Remember that art history course? The professor talked about perspective. Where you stand changes what you see. And you've only heard their perspective. I'm asking you to consider another. Your father's. Dad's dead, she said, pain in her voice. And he didn't trust us enough to tell us anything. I pulled out a tablet. He actually left something for both of us. What is it? Videos, Jenna, hundreds. Messages to guide us after he was gone. I cued the one Joshua titled For Jenna When You Need It. Her face went still. He made videos? He knew he was dying, I said at last. He was diagnosed 3 years ago with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. He chose not to tell us. He wanted to spare us watching him decline. Impossible. He would have told me. But doubt crept into her voice. Watch. Listen to him. With trembling fingers, she hit play. Joshua's face appeared, healthy, that unmistakable smile. Hey, my bright girl. If you're seeing this, I'm gone. And knowing you, you're mad about the secrets. He laughed softly. You never liked being in the dark, not even as a kid. I should have told you I was sick, given you time for your 1,000 questions. I was selfish. I wanted our last years to be normal. He leaned in. There's something else you need to know. About my brothers. It wasn't a silly spat. They siphoned off my share of the inheritance at 19, used my name on forged documents while I was in college. When I found out and threatened to expose them, they threatened to drag me down with them. Jenna covered her mouth, eyes glued to the screen. I left Canada, changed Jonathan to Joshua, started fresh in Minnesota. I met you, Kat. I built you, Jenna. That was enough. But my brothers didn't change. Whatever happens, remember, they want the property out of greed, and they'll use anyone, including my daughter, to get it. The video ended. Jenna sat frozen, crying silently. He was protecting us, she whispered. From more than his illness. Yes, I said softly. Your uncles aren't the family connection they pretend. They're opportunists. She wiped her tears. Anger replaced pain. They've been lying to me, haven't they? Not about everything. The farm is worth millions, that's true. But they didn't tell you about the western section they excluded, or the true magnitude of the oil there. Understanding dawned. They're trying to scam us. Us? I repeated, hope flickering. Are you back on my side? I never left, Mom. It's just, she lowered her gaze. I wanted to feel connected to Dad through his family. They had stories of him, photos. I understand. I squeezed her hand. Grief makes us vulnerable, but now we have to be smarter, together. Jenna straightened. Her expression shifted to determination, so, like her father, it hurt. What's the plan? First, we see my lawyer tonight, not theirs, one Winters recommended. Tomorrow, a meeting with Western Plains Energy. Why? Because knowledge is leverage, and we know something your uncles don't, where the oil is and how much. I showed her the geological studies. She let out a laugh, the first since Joshua died. Dad always said you were the smartest person he knew, that beneath the quiet teacher was a strategist who could outplay anyone if she was motivated. Did he really? Always. She smiled, drying the last of her tears. He also said the biggest mistake was underestimating Catherine Mitchell. We left the cafe with a new pulse. The Mitchells had unwittingly united us. They didn't know their success with Jenna had just set up their defeat. That afternoon, with Jenna at my side, I laid out my plan to the lawyer Joshua had chosen for this scenario. His expression moved from interest to open respect. Mrs. Mitchell, he said, your husband said your strategy would surprise me. He was right. My husband was right about many things, I replied, including my ability not just to survive his death, but to emerge stronger from this crucible. The Mitchells arrived at 10 sharp, 3 days later. Their SUV crunched up the gravel with assumed inevitability. Behind it, an unfamiliar silver Mercedes, their attorney or advisor. I watched them from the great room, wearing a tailored suit I'd bought for this meeting. Appearances matter when you're leading a coup, and I had no intention of showing up as a grieving widow, but as the formidable opponent Joshua knew. They're here, I called to Jenna, who emerged equally professional. Ready? Completely. I squeezed her hand. Let them talk themselves into a corner. Ellis peeked in from the back. The others have arrived through the service entrance. Everything's set in the dining room. Perfect. The bell rang. Ellis opened with practiced deference. Good morning, gentlemen. Mrs. Mitchell and Miss Jenna are expecting you. This way. They entered with the ease of men in charge. Robert first, Alan with his portfolio, David trailing. After them, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, pure corporate aura. Catherine, Robert nodded. Thank you for seeing us. This is Harrison Wells, CEO of Northern Extraction. We thought it productive to bring an expert. How considerate. Intimidation by technicality. Predictable. How thoughtful. I've prepared the dining room for our meeting. Shall we? I led them. I felt their eyes assessing the renovations. In the formal dining room, the table was set with documentation at each seat, water, coffee, and the picture of professional readiness. Please sit. We have much to discuss. They settled, confident. I remained standing at the head. First, thank you for your proposal. It has been educational. Robert's smile spread. He mistook it for capitulation. We're glad that, with Mr. Wells's guidance, we can discuss the most advantageous division. Yes, the division. I picked up a remote. That's precisely what I want to address. Click, a hidden screen descended. They glanced at each other, surprised. They hadn't expected this level of staging. If you'll direct your attention to the presentation, click. A detailed map of Maple Creek appeared. Boundaries, topography, formations. This is the full survey. All 2,200 acres, not just the 800 eastern acres in your proposal. Alan shifted. The western section is cost prohibitive. We excluded it for simplicity. How considerate. Except for one detail. Another click. The deposits overlaid. The complete study from the war room, the large reserve beneath the useless western acres. Harrison straightened, professional mass cracking with sudden interest. As you can see, the primary deposit lies under the west, those acres you so generously excluded. Robert reddened. Those surveys aren't reliable. Northern extraction indicates, actually, a new voice cut in. The connecting door opened. Those surveys have been verified by 3 independent teams. The Mitchells turned, thrown. In walked Thomas Reeves, CEO of Western Plains Energy Direct Competition, followed by my lawyer and 2 executives. "What is this?" Robert exploded. "This," I said pleasantly, "is a meeting about the real value and future of Maple Creek. Mr. Reeves has shown great interest after reviewing the full data my husband gathered." Harrison shot the Mitchells a disgusted look. "You assured me you had exclusive negotiation rights." "You don't," my lawyer interjected, placing documents. "Mrs. Mitchell holds clear title to the entire property, mineral rights included. The papers you were shown are invalid." Robert slammed the table. "This property has been Mitchell land for generations. Joshua had a moral obligation." "Moral obligation?" Jenna spoke for the first time, voice steady. "Like the one you had to my father when you stole his inheritance? When you forged his name on loans? When you threatened to implicate him?" The brothers froze. Harrison frowned. "What is she talking about?" "Perhaps this will clarify," I said. My lawyer distributed sealed envelopes, copies of documentation my husband retained concerning certain historical Mitchell transactions. Statutes of limitation may have run on some. To Canadian financial authorities, others might prove interesting. Alan opened his. Panic crept over his face. "Private matters? Irrelevant." "On the contrary," I sat at last. "They establish a fraudulent pattern affecting your credibility. Behavior continued when you misled Mr. Wells about your capacity to negotiate." Silence. They grasped the magnitude of their exposure. "What do you want?" Robert yielded. "For you to leave Maple Creek and not return, to drop any contest of my ownership, and to stop manipulating my daughter. In return, these documents remain private, for those present only." Harrison rose. "My firm's involvement was based on incomplete and potentially fraudulent information. With your permission, Mrs. Mitchell, I'll contact you directly about the mineral rights." He left, not without a look of revulsion at the Mitchells. "You don't know what you're doing, Catherine," Robert growled. "Extraction costs in the West are prohibitive. Logistics." "Actually," Reeves interjected, "Western Plains has developed new technology for these formations. We're prepared to make an offer that recognizes both the challenges and the exceptional potential." The meeting shifted hands, from their coup to my counterstrike. I traded a glance with Jenna. Her small smile said, "It all." Pride, vindication, and the certainty that Joshua had prepared us for this moment. 2 hours later, the Mitchells left defeated, exposed, and legally bound by the settlement agreement my lawyer had ready. Maple Creek's future was secured exactly as Joshua envisioned it, not divided among grasping relatives nor sold to the highest bidder, but preserved as a legacy for the family he chose and loved, Jenna and me. "Your husband would be proud," Ellis said beside me. "You outmaneuvered them just as he believed you would." "We're not done yet," I replied, thinking of the videos still to watch and the future opening up. This was the first battle, but we won it decisively, with the weapons Joshua prepared and the strength he always saw in me. The weeks after the Mitchells' failed play passed in a blur of logistics. Formalizing the settlement, meetings with Western Plains for a beneficial, responsible extraction plan, inventories of everything Joshua had created. Jenna stayed at my side. Her resentment turned into appreciation for her father's foresight. We established the ritual of watching one of Joshua's videos every morning, finding comfort and guidance in his posthumous presence. "Did you suspect anything?" she asked one afternoon on the porch, watching the sun set behind the western hills, now synonymous with wealth. "Some things click now," I said. His insistence on updating wills 3 years ago. The way he sometimes looked at us at dinner, like memorizing us, suddenly taking photos of the everyday. I thought it was a midlife appreciate life phase. She smiled sadly. In a way it was, just for different reasons, I said. The bigger tell was how he stopped postponing. He always said someday. Europe, learning to sail, redoing the kitchen, and suddenly, action. Like buying this. Creating something lasting. Western Plains representatives were surprised when I set my rhetor. Conditions. No lump sum sale of rights, but a structure prioritizing environmental protection, sustainable methods, and a robust reclamation trust for after depletion. Mrs. Mitchell, their negotiator said, this is highly unusual. Then perhaps the industry needs more unusual, I replied, calm as Joshua. The oil's been there for millions of years. It can wait until we do this right. To my surprise, Thomas Reeves seemed intrigued, not deterred. Your husband mentioned you studied environmental science before switching to literature, he said. Said you'd insist on doing it right, not just profitably. Another sign of Joshua's preparation. He'd already built bridges with key leaders. A month after claiming my inheritance, I stood in the studio, north light bathing a blank canvas. After decades, I'd picked up the brush, tentative at first, then sure. Today's subject waited patiently in the paddock. Midnight, the Frisian Joshua bought, because he resembled a painting I'd admired 20 years earlier. Ellis was teaching me to ride again. The body protests, then remembers. Mom. Jenna appeared at the door, holding the laptop. Today's video is different. I think you should watch it alone. We'd made a habit of watching together over breakfast. Different how. It's labeled Month 2, Day 15, When Catherine Paints Again. She handed me the computer with a smile. He knew you would. I opened it and hit play. Joshua appeared in this very room, still empty, before the supplies were installed. Hi, love, he smiled warmly. If you're seeing this, you've returned to your art, to the passion you set aside for our family. I touched the screen, eyes wet. I think a lot about legacy, he continued. Most people mean children, wealth, achievements. But there's another, enabling possibilities in the people we love. He gestured around. This space isn't finished, but I see it filled with light and color, with your creations. I imagine you at the easel, finally shaping what you carry inside. I glanced at the half-finished portrait of Midnight, so close to what he'd imagined. I've structured everything to give you freedom, Kat. Financial security through the rights, protection from my brothers, a beautiful place to create. But what you do with that freedom, that's your legacy, not mine. He leaned in. The farm, the horses, the studio aren't the inheritance. They're the tools. The real inheritance is possibility, becoming more fully you. I paused, overwhelmed. Joshua knew me better than I knew myself. I'm asking one thing, he added. In the back closet, there's a large custom canvas. It's blank, waiting. When you're ready, paint something for it. Something that captures not just what you see, but what you feel for this place that took me back to my beginnings and will carry you into your future. The video ended with his usual sign-off. See you tomorrow, love. I went to the closet and there it was, a huge canvas, sized for the main wall of the great room. Perfect for a centerpiece. In the weeks that followed, autumn painted the landscape. I sketched without finding it, until one morning, watching Jenna ride Midnight through the meadow, everything clicked. The piece took shape. Not a traditional landscape, but layers of time. The background, the current farm, almost photo-precise. In front, translucent layers of what had been. The abandoned property he bought, the farm from his childhood, beneath the ancient earth witnessing generations. Cutting through the strata, two riders, a man and a woman, features just indistinct enough to be us and anyone. Behind them, barely visible, a third figure, a young woman tracing her own path. When we finished, Ellis helped me hang it. Jenna stepped back, eyes wet. It's him, isn't it? And you? And me. She traced the rider's roots with a finger. Past, present, and future. Legacy, I said. Not what's left behind, but what continues. That afternoon, watching sunset from the porch of what was now my home, I felt Joshua not as a ghost, but as a living alliance. He'd left me security, yes, but more than that, a framework to reinvent myself. The freedom to discover who Catherine Mitchell could be unbound. The oil would provide stability for generations, the farm would evolve under our care, and I would bring beauty with my rediscovered talent, creating my own legacy alongside the one Joshua prepared. Tomorrow held another video, another dose of time-crossed guidance. But with each day, I looked forward more than back, grateful for his foresight, eager to write the next chapters myself. The forbidden farm had become sacred ground, not a place of secrets and pain like in Joshua's youth, but a sanctuary of possibility, his last and greatest gift. Winter fell over, Maple Creek with dramatic beauty. Pristine snow across the fields, ice crystals on the windows, smoke rising from the chimney into Alberta's clear sky. I decided to stay the season rather than return to Minnesota. I wanted to live a full cycle on this land that had become home. Jenna returned to Minneapolis. Her company wouldn't extend her leave. Our video ritual continued over FaceTime. 3 of us connected across time and space, Jenna in her city apartment, me in the farm's great room, and Joshua joining us from the past. The Western Hills are gorgeous after the snowfall, Joshua said in today's video, recorded exactly a year ago in this room. If Ellis kept the snowmobile in the barn, ride to the ridge at sunrise. The view's worth it. I smiled. He kept anticipating my days. Just yesterday, Ellis mentioned the snowmobile and the winter trails Joshua had cut. 6 months had passed since I faced the Mitchells. They'd honored the agreement and stayed away, though my lawyer forwarded the occasional technical note from their team about boundaries as Western Plains began preliminary work on the eastern edge. The project advanced slowly and carefully, honoring our unusual deal. Thomas Reeves became an unexpected ally. Business interest deepened into genuine respect for the sustainable path Joshua envisioned, and I demanded. The phone rang. Jenna. I froze. Our daily call was hours away. Everything okay? I don't know, she answered, tense. Uncle David came by, officially to apologize for manipulating me, but something felt off. He asked, subtly, if I go to the farm often, if I've noticed anything unusual. Did you tell him anything? No. Vague and evasive. Mom, I think they're planning something. He felt like recon. A chill ran through me. Too much silence for men like that. I'll alert Ellis and tighten security. I'll have my lawyer remind them of the agreement. There's something else, she added. David said Robert is sick, heart issue, surgery. He tried to play my sympathy, family in hard times. The same condition that took Joshua. I wondered if Robert had hidden it from his brothers, as Joshua had from us. Be careful. It could be true, or a tactic. That's what I thought, she sighed. I hate suspecting every interaction. It shouldn't be like this. After we hung up, I stared out at the snowy drive, uneasy. I called Ellis. His reply was calm but firm. I'll alert the team and check the perimeter. That's what we installed the system for. Another of Joshua's foresights, discreet, thorough security. I'd once thought it excessive. Now, a blessing. That afternoon, I went down to the bunker for guidance among Joshua's methodical files. In the bottom drawer, I found a folder labeled in his hand, If They Return. Inside, a contingency plan with steps, already drafted injunctions, agency contacts, and, surprisingly, a sealed letter addressed to Robert Mitchell. A sticky note. Last resort. Deliver only if absolutely necessary. What had he written to his brother so potentially powerful or painful that it should be used only in extremis? I returned to the house with the letter in my pocket, running through scenarios. Outside, it had started snowing again. The next morning, Ellis knocked as I finished breakfast. We have visitors, he said grim. All 3 Mitchells, plus 2 unknowns, at the gate, asking to come in. Robert says it's a family matter, not about the property. I looked out. 2 cars at the entrance, the SUV and a modest sedan. What do you think they want? Nothing good, he said. But denying them might provoke what they're planning. Better to control the encounter on our terms. Keep security alert but invisible. Access only to the main house. No other buildings. I alerted my lawyer and Jenna. Don't come, they might intend to isolate us both. Through the window, I watched the gates swing open. I went to the bedroom for another item Joshua left for these situations, a digital recorder disguised as a brooch. I wanted every word on record. When the bell rang, I was in the great room, seated, the brooch on my lapel and the letter in my pocket. Ellis led them in. Robert entered first, visibly thinner and sallow. Alan and David behind. The two strangers closed the line, one with a medical bag, the other with a legal portfolio. "Catherine," Robert greeted, without his commanding tone. "Thank you for seeing us without an appointment." "Family always arrives unannounced," I said. "Sit. Ellis, coffee?" They settled. I saw tension and worried glances from Alan to Robert. Whatever brought them revolved around the eldest. "I'll be direct," Robert began. "I've been diagnosed with the same thing Joshua had, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's hereditary." I kept my face neutral. "It's advanced. The specialists give me 6 months without intervention, maybe years with the right treatment," he gestured. "Dr. Harmon, my cardiologist. Mr. Pearson, my attorney." I nodded. "I'm sorry for your situation, but I don't see why you bring it to me." He exchanged looks. "I need a transplant, Catherine, but there's a problem. Our family has a rare blood type and markers that make a compatible donor very hard to find." A suspicion formed. "Sounds complicated. Why come to me?" "Because," the doctor interjected, "from the records we've reviewed, your late husband would have been a perfect donor for Robert. And given the genetic factors, there's a high probability your daughter is compatible." The audacity hit me. They wanted to test Jenna, to use my daughter's body to save the same man who tried to steal her inheritance and pit her against me. "You want my daughter tested as a potential donor?" I verified, "for the recording." "Just preliminary labs," Alan jumped in. "Nothing invasive, for now." "And if she's compatible?" I pressed. "We'd hope she'd consider being a living donor," Robert answered. "The procedure allows a partial liver transplant with minimal risk. It regenerates." I sat in silence, stunned by their monumental sense of entitlement. After manipulating and defrauding us, they now expected major surgery from a young woman they barely knew. "Let me get this straight," I said at last, firm. "You tried to take this property from me, manipulated my daughter with half-truths, and now you're asking her to undergo surgery to save your life." Robert at least looked uncomfortable. "I know how it sounds, but we're still family, Catherine. Blood connects us." "Blood," I echoed, thinking of the videos, the painful history, and the determination to protect us. "You're right about one thing. Blood connects us, but not the way you think." I pulled out the sealed letter. Recognition flickered in Robert's eyes. "Joshua left this for you, with instructions to deliver it only if absolutely necessary. I think this is the moment." He eyed it with a mix of longing and fear. "I didn't hand it over yet. Before I give it to you, I want clarity. You're asking my daughter, the same one you tried to use 6 months ago, to be tested and perhaps undergo major surgery to save you." "It sounds cold when you put it that way," Alan cut in. "But yes, essentially. Why not David or Alan?" I looked at the others. "Siblings are usually better matches." The doctor cleared his throat. "We've already tested both. They're not compatible due to unusual genetic factors." "And there are no other siblings?" I asked, watching their faces. "No other family?" They traded glances. David looked away to the window. "No," Robert said. "No others." I nodded slowly and handed him the letter. "I think you should read this before we continue." With trembling hands, he broke the seal. His eyes ran down a few lines. They flew wide. He paled. The paper shook in his fingers. Alan leaned in. "Robert, what?" He didn't answer. When he looked up, he was changed. No longer the self-assured executive, but a man facing ghosts. "How long have you known?" he asked hoarsely. I only know Joshua left this for you and that it contained something you might need. What does it say?" He passed the letter to Alan. David read over his shoulder. Their faces shifted from curiosity to disbelief and, almost, horror. "This can't be," Alan said. "Father would have told us." "Would he?" Robert let out a brittle laugh. "The same father who pitted us against each other, played favorites, relished secrets." "Perhaps," I offered, "someone should tell me what my husband wrote." Robert looked at me with a new clarity. "Joshua wasn't our half-brother. He was our full brother." That made no sense. "Joshua told me his father remarried after his mother died in childbirth. Hence the age gap." "That was the story we all believed," Robert said. "But according to the letter, Joshua discovered the truth while researching his heart condition. Our mother didn't die in childbirth. She left our father when Joshua was a baby, unable to tolerate his abuse. He invented her death to avoid scandal and punish her, erasing her. And there's more," Alan added. "Father had another family, a previous and later relationship with a woman in Saskatoon with whom he had 2 children." Then I understood. 2 more Mitchell siblings, now in their 40s, Robert confirmed, scanning the letter with the same rare blood type and markers. "In all likelihood, unaware of their connection to you," I ventured. "Joshua found them but didn't contact them. He only confirmed their existence and medical compatibility." Robert nodded. "He kept their contact info updated every year with a private investigator, in case one of you needed what you're now asking of Jenna," I finished. "A compatible donor from a family you never acknowledged." "The letter says he learned all this after his diagnosis," David said quietly. "He was already planning Maple Creek for you, but when he discovered those other siblings, he doubled down on breaking with the legacy of secrets and manipulation. He wanted to create something honest, transparent, built on love." My eyes stung. Even from beyond, Joshua handed us a lesson in integrity. "So," I said, "you have alternatives to my daughter, 2 half-siblings who share the markers. They're strangers," Robert protested. "We know nothing about them." "And whose fault is that?" I replied. "Your father chose to hide them. You chose to treat Joshua as lesser. Now you face the consequences." Dr. Harmon spoke up. "Medically, we should contact any potential donor soon. Mr. Mitchell's condition is worsening." I looked at Robert, once powerful, now diminished by illness and the collapse of a family myth. Despite everything, I didn't feel satisfaction. Joshua wouldn't have wanted that. "Does the letter include contacts?" "Yes." "Then start there, not with demands, but with humility and truth. Tell them who you are, explain the situation, and let them choose, as Jenna would if it came to that, with full information. No manipulation, no pressure, no lies." The brothers absorbed this, their faces for the first time resembling Joshua's. The jawline, the tired eyes. Blood shows, but choices define. "We'll go," Robert said, rising with effort. "Thank you for this." Ellis saw them out. I sat with the revelation. Joshua had known he had other siblings, people who might have welcomed him and shared his biological inheritance. Still, he chose not to upend their lives. He kept that letter as protection for us. That night, with snow falling softly, I opened the day's video. Joshua appeared, recorded a year ago in this very room. "Hi, love," he smiled. "If I calculated right, today might be the day my brothers play the medical card. They've known about my condition for years. Father made sure to tell them when I was a teenager, though they never offered help." I let out a breath. "If they approached you or Jenna for compatibility, you've given them the letter about our other siblings." I thought about contacting them many times, but their lives were set. I doubted my right to burst in with an old story and biological ties that might mean nothing. He leaned in. "The truth, Kat, is that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. I chose you. I hope whoever you approach will be given the same freedom, to help or not, connect or not, without obligation." As he continued, sharing his vision of family and legacy, I felt peace. The Mitchells had come to use Jenna, as they had used Joshua. Instead, they were forced to face the web of secrets their father spun and to own their choices. Whether they approached those siblings with honesty or with the same tricks was no longer my problem, nor Joshua's, nor Jenna's. We had broken that toxic dynamic, claiming our own legacy through Maple Creek and the life we were building. Joshua had transformed his childhood prison into my sanctuary, his painful past into my promising future. The forbidden farm had become sacred, not for the oil or the financial security, but because it symbolized his final triumph over the family that rejected him and the love that sustained him. Spring will return to Maple Creek. The horses will run through green fields. Oil will be extracted carefully from the western hills. I will keep creating in the studio he designed. Jenna will visit when she can. Perhaps one day she'll bring children to ride and explore the land there, grandfather reclaimed. And Joshua will remain present in the legacy he so carefully laid. Not only in the daily videos that will end, but in every corner of this place that reflects his love, his vision, and his insistence that past mistakes not dictate the future. What was forbidden became cherished. The secret, celebrated. And I, Catherine Mitchell, became the guardian of a legacy built not on obligation or blood, but on the purest foundation, love freely given and gratefully received. "See you tomorrow, love," Joshua said as the video closed. "See you tomorrow," I whispered, knowing that while tomorrow would bring another message from the past, it would also bring me one day closer to the future I'm building now. Inspired by his example, shaped by my emerging strength. The legacy of Maple Creek continued, no longer forbidden, but transformed forever. Thank you for watching this story. Share it with anyone who enjoys tales like this. Subscribe and tell me in the comments if you liked my story. Cheers.